After the college entrance exams, my childhood friend asked the class beauty out, planning to confess his feelings unexpectedly. Fireworks at home suddenly exploded, trapping them in a sea of flames. Seeing they were about to be burned alive, I gritted my teeth and rushed in to save them. After shielding my childhood friend from a falling window frame, my arm and cheek suffered extensive burns. My childhood friend was forced to marry me out of a sense of obligation. We've been married for 10 years. And have 2 children, yet he has never once smiled at me. He said, "If you hadn't forced me to marry you, I would have been with Wen Xiao long ago." Even the children call me an ugly monster, saying I don't deserve to be their mother. I succumbed to depression and passed away before I turned 40. In my final moments, I heard my childhood sweetheart crying into his hands, "Finally dead. I've waited so long. And now I can finally be with Wen Xiao." When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my childhood sweetheart asked the class beauty to watch the fireworks. My childhood friend Qin Dayuan nudged me. "Feng Yuzhu, are you even listening? Do you think Wen Xiao will accept my confession?" With a jolt, I sprang to my feet and rushed to the mirror. There was no hideous scar on my face. My entire face was smooth, fair, and utterly flawless. I couldn't stop myself from crying. I've been reborn. Hey, Feng Yuzhu, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Let me tell you, I don't like you. I like the class beauty, Zhang Wenxiao. Don't think your tears will make me change my mind. I'm going to confess to Wenxiao in a moment. Hearing Qin Dayuan's voice, I wiped my face. How could I forget that this scumbag was still here? Qin Dayuan guiltily touched his nose. What my parents said about us getting married when we grew up was all nonsense. I never agreed to it. You didn't actually believe it, did you? I snorted coldly. Of course I didn't take it seriously. You and Zhang Wenxiao are a match made in heaven, perfect for each other. A scumbag and a bitch, a perfect match, truly a match made in hell. Qin Dayuan let out a sigh. I'm glad you understand. You're a great person, but I see you as a sister. Only when I'm with Wen Xiao does my heart truly feel alive. I shot Qin Dayuan a dirty look. What? Is his heart not beating? Is he a dead man? Qin Dayuan didn't notice the change in my demeanor. He pointed at the several crates of fireworks in his house and said, "I made all these fireworks for Wen Xiaoxue. Do you think she'll be so moved she cries when she sees them?" I looked at the several crates of fireworks in his house. Little did Qin Dayuan know, these fireworks were a death warrant for him and Zhang Wenxiao too in his past life. After the college entrance exams, Qin Dayuan wanted to confess his feelings to Zhang Wenxiao. He had also personally made several crates of fireworks just like this. He even invited several classmates to join in as the hype crew. The plan was for everyone to rush in and light the fireworks as soon as his confession succeeded. But before Qin Dayuan could even confess, the fireworks at his house suddenly exploded, trapping him and Zhang Wenxiao in a sea of flames. All the students were terrified. I immediately pulled out my phone and dialed 119, but the fire was too intense. If we waited for the firefighters to arrive, Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao would have been burned to a crisp. In this critical moment, Qin Dayuan was inside screaming for help. "Save me, Feng Yuzhu, come and save me. Qin Dayuan is my childhood sweetheart. We grew up together. Both our families have always taken it for granted that Dayuan and I are meant to be." Dayuan's mother would always say, "Once Yuzhu grows up, our Dayuan will marry her and bring her home." Every time, I would blush crimson, while Qin Dayuan would watch me with sparkling eyes, secretly smiling. Qin Dayuan knew I had feelings for him. That's why, when trapped in the sea of flames, he instinctively called out to me for help. The door to Qin Dayuan's house was old and poorly maintained. Sometimes it couldn't be opened from the inside. Someone had to turn the knob from the outside to get it open. Uncle Qin said the noise from fixing the door would be too disruptive for Qin Dayuan, who was preparing for the college entrance exams, so they'd wait until after the exams to repair it. Unexpectedly, before Uncle Qin could fix the door, a fire broke out. Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao were trapped inside, frantically trying to turn the knob to no avail. In a panic, they cried out, "Someone help us, please, I don't want to die. Hurry up and help us get this door open. Why are you all just standing there? Are you going to stand by and watch them die?" But the students just looked at each other, none daring to make a move. The door trapping Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao was glowing red-hot from the fire. Anyone trying to open it now would get severely burned. Who knows if the fire would spread and catch them too. Qin Dayuan and Feng Yuzhu were visibly struggling to breathe, their gasps growing more labored by the second. Qin Dayuan pinned all his hopes on me, his eyes locking onto mine. "Feng Yuzhu, please, you like me, don't you? You have to save me. Open the door. I won't confess to Zhang Wenxiao. I'll be with you. ****. My parents treat you like their own daughter. If I die, what will happen to them? I'm their only son, please, save me. Listening to Qin Dayuan's heart wrenching cries, my conscience was torn in two. Glancing at the door, warped and twisted by the flames, my palms were slick with sweat. In the end, I simply couldn't bear the thought of watching Qin Dayuan burn to death. Gritting my teeth, I grabbed a water-soaked bedsheet, threw it over myself, and charged inside. The sensation of being burned is truly unbearable. The moment my hand touched that red-hot door, the pain made me grimace, the skin on my right hand sizzled, and my tears fell in large drops. Feng Yuzhu, hurry up, open the door. Quickly, Qin Dayuan kept urging from inside. I had to grit my teeth against the pain and keep trying to open the door. I've thought it through. My burned hand can be treated later, but if Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao die, that's 2 human lives lost. I couldn't just stand by and watch my childhood friend Qin Dayuan die. When I opened the door, I saw Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao collapsed on the floor. On the verge of losing consciousness, I immediately grabbed Qin Dayuan, planning to get him out first and then come back for Zhang Wenxiao. But just as I was pulling Qin Dayuan towards the exit, the window frame began to sway and teeter, about to come crashing down on him. Instinctively, I threw up my arm to shield Qin Dayuan from the falling, burning window frame, but the flames licking the frame seared my arm and face, the pain so intense I nearly buckled. Just after I had pulled both Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao to safety, the ambulance arrived. The paramedics loaded all 3 of us into the ambulance. Qin Dayuan and Feng Yuzhu weren't seriously hurt, they only suffered minor burns and will make a full recovery with proper treatment, but my arms and face were severely burned, leaving me permanently disfigured. Before my parents could even speak, Qin Dayuan knelt before them and said, Yuzhu got hurt saving me, I will marry her. Yet on our wedding night, the moment he looked at my face, Qin Dayuan ran to the bathroom and vomited. He said, Feng Yuzhu, I wish you had never saved me. Even if you hadn't come, the firefighters would have rescued both Wenxiao and me. Don't think that just because you saved me, I owe you anything. Let me make this clear, even if you forced me to marry you, my heart will always belong to Zhang Wenxiao alone. Over the 10 years of our marriage, we had 2 children together, but the children didn't like me either. They took after Qin Dayuan, hurling insults at me and forbidding me from picking them up from school. They said, if our classmates find out our mom is an ugly duckling, they'll definitely make fun of us. In 10 years of marriage, I barely stepped outside the house a handful of times. I was terrified of embarrassing Qin Dayuan and the children. Before I even turned 40, I died of depression. Given a second chance at life, I'm going to see for myself if Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao can even survive without me. 3. Seeing me spaced out, Qin Dayuan's face hardened. Feng Yuzhu, he said, I'll be with Wenxiao soon, you'd better get over your feelings for me. I think Li Kaixiang is a good guy, and he seems to like you. How about I set you 2 up? I snapped back to reality. No, thanks, I don't like you. Who you confess to is none of my business. Before Zhang Wenxiao, the class beauty, transferred to our school, everyone just assumed Qin Dayuan and I were a couple. He never once denied it, but after Zhang Wenxiao transferred, he came running to me, all eager, saying he only saw me as a little sister. I knew perfectly well, his feelings had changed. You don't like me. The whole compound knows you have a crush on me. I laughed. Well, the whole compound also knows you like me. And didn't you say you only see me as a little sister? Qin Dayuan let out an awkward chuckle. That's different. Qin Dayuan tried to say more, but I didn't give him the chance. I just pushed him right out the door. Weren't you going to go confess your feelings? Get going. To reassure Zhang Wenxiao, Qin Dayuan even wanted me to be their hype person in my past life. I foolishly agreed. It ended with me getting disfigured this time around. I just want to stay as far away from those 2 scumbags, Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao, as possible. Whether they live or die is no longer any concern of mine. I ran to my room, turned on my computer, and changed my university application choices. With my college entrance exam score, I could have gotten into a much better university. Just to attend the same university as Qin Dayuan, I stubbornly gave up my top choice. School, of course. In my past life, I never made it to university because of my disfigurement, but this time, I can attend the school I've always dreamed of. The school I chose is in the south. Meanwhile, Qin Dayuan's university is in the north. Even if Qin Dayuan survives this time, there won't be any more entanglements between him and me, for it's not like I never considered warning Qin Dayuan about those fireworks. But then I remember, in my past life after my face was disfigured, Qin Dayuan, afraid my parents would hold him accountable, knelt before them of his own accord. He promised to marry me and swore to treat me well for the rest of his life. Only then did my parents feel comfortable entrusting me to him to keep Qin Dayuan from looking down on me. My father transferred the family property to him and pulled every string he could to help Qin Dayuan start his business later. Qin Dayuan made it big and became the boss of his own company, but Qin Dayuan never once gave me a kind look. Instead, he mocked me daily, saying I forced him to marry me. To make matters worse, he was still carrying on with Zhang Wenxiao while I was recovering from giving birth to our second child. He actually went out and checked into a hotel with Zhang Wenxiao. After I found out, I went and confronted Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao. I thought they would be ashamed and apologize. Well, what do you know? Qin Dayuan is holding Zhang Wenxiao. Maybe it's for the best that you caught us, saves me the trouble of sneaking around. Leaning against Qin Dayuan, Zhang Wenxiao shot me a mocking smile. Feng Yuzhu, take a good look at yourself. How dare a hideous creature like you think you can compete with me for Dayuan? Know your place. I broke down sobbing. My face was ruined saving both of you. How could you treat me like this? Qin Dayuan frowned tightly. Will you stop harping on that? If I'd known you'd use this to threaten me, I'd rather you hadn't saved me at all. Zhang Wenxiao chimed in. Even if you hadn't come to our rescue, we would have been fine. Dayuan was clearly about to confess his feelings to me back then. I should be Mrs. Qin, so I'm quite curious to see if Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao can really survive completely unscathed without me. 5. Sure enough, it wasn't long before the sound of booming explosions came from outside. The fireworks had gone off in no time at all. Qin Dayuan's house was ablaze. The fire erupted with terrifying speed. Before Qin Dayuan and Feng Yuzhu could even react and try to open the door to escape, they discovered, to their horror, that it wouldn't budge. Trapped inside, they could only scream for help. Help, someone help us, please, get the door open, hurry, get us out of here. Outside the house, their classmates were frantic with worry, pacing and jumping in agitation. What should we do? Should we try to save them? If you want to go, you go. I don't have the courage. Look at that fire. The door is already glowing red hot. If you try to open it, you'll get burned to a crisp. Then what do we do? They're going to die. Li Kaixiang, aren't you Qin Dayuan's best buddy? Why aren't you going to save him? Named directly, Li Kaixiang was quick to distance himself. Best buddy? What are you talking about? Why should I risk my life for him? From my window at home, I watched my classmates just standing there, wringing their hands in anxiety, just like they did in a past life. Yet, not a single person went to rescue Qin Dayuan and Feng Yuzhu. In my past life, I was still the one who dialed 119 first, but this time, in their panic, those classmates actually took a full 5 minutes before they remembered to call for help, and because they weren't familiar with the address here, they stumbled over the details when reporting it, even getting the name of our residential complex wrong several times. That wasted another 2 minutes. Feng Yuzhu must have been completely exhausted. Even her cries for help had grown faint. Qin Dayuan was clearly in a bad way too, yet even at a time like this, he actually thought of me. He shouted to Li Kaixiang, go get Feng Yuzhu, she'll save me. I know she will, hurry. Prompted by Qin Dayuan's words, the other students immediately rushed to knock on my door. Feng Yuzhu, open up, Qin Dayuan's house is on fire, you have to go save him. If you don't go save him now, Qin Dayuan will burn to death. I was hoping to pretend I didn't hear, but then Li Kaixiang shouted, I know you're in there. I just saw you talking to Qin Dayuan, open the door, hurry. Well, there was no pretending I didn't hear that. If I don't open the door, knowing Li Kaixiang and his crew, they'll definitely pin the whole thing on me. They'll say I stood by and did nothing, that I wouldn't even open the door. After all, we're neighbors. It would be hard to explain myself to Uncle Qin and his family. I had no choice but to brace myself and open the door. 6. I was just sleeping. What's going on with you guys? Li Kaixiang looked at me suspiciously. With all that racket, you were still asleep. The others all started talking at once. Hey, enough talk. Feng Yuzhu, go save Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao. Quick, they're trapped in the fire. I pretended to have just noticed the fire at Qin Dayuan's house. How did it get so big? Don't ask. The fireworks he made himself exploded. His door is broken and can't be opened from the inside. Go open it for them. Hurry. If you don't, they're going to burn to death. I pretended to be scared. No, I can't. I don't dare. That door is covered in flames. If I try to save them, the fire will surely catch me. At that moment, Qin Dayuan, trapped in the sea of flames, seemed to see me. He shouted, Feng Yuzhu, come open the door. Cough. I can't hold on much longer. My classmates urged me. If you don't go now, Qin Dayuan will die. Yeah, hurry up. Stop dawdling. I asked them, why don't you go save him? My classmates were stunned by my question, glancing at each other in confusion. In the end, Li Kaixiang was the quickest to react, saying, "Aren't you Qin Dayuan's girlfriend? How can you stand by and do nothing? Go open the door, that's right. You and Qin Dayuan grew up together. You should be the one to save him." I widened my eyes innocently. "I'm Qin Dayuan's girlfriend. You've got the wrong person, haven't you? Didn't Qin Dayuan call you all here today to witness him confessing to Zhang Wenxiao? How could I possibly be his girlfriend?" Li Kaixiang was left speechless for a moment, then blurted out in desperation, "If you don't go save them, Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao are going to die. But I'm too scared, the fire is so huge. Would any of you dare to go in?" Seeing me ask like that, no one dared to speak up anymore. Finally, a classmate mumbled timidly, "The firefighters are almost here. Qin Dayuan and the others won't die, right?" The next second, Qin Dayuan's agonized scream tore through the house. "Ah, my face, my hands, ah." After that sound, the house fell silent. About 5 minutes later, the firefighters finally arrived. 7. You have to hand it to the fire crew for their professionalism. They showed up and had the door broken down in under 2 minutes. They carried Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao out. Zhang Wenxiao had already passed out, with burns of varying severity on her arms and calves. It was worse than last time, but it didn't look fatal. But Qin Dayuan was in a bad way. His face and arms were covered in extensive burns, which looked far more severe than mine in my previous life. I'm curious to see how Qin Dayuan, disfigured to this extent, can possibly stay together with Zhang Wenxiao. Weren't you the ones who told me not to save him? Fine, for the rest of my life. Just consider it my gift to the two of you. 8. That evening, when my parents got home and heard the news that Qin Dayuan was in the hospital, they hurriedly packed some things to go visit him. My parents wanted me to go with them. My initial instinct was to refuse, but my mom said, "I don't know what's going on between you and Dayuan, but things seem a bit strained lately. But he's been burned so badly. You grew up together. After all, you really should go see him." I couldn't argue with my parents, so I had to go along. On the hospital bed, Qin Dayuan's face and hands were wrapped up like a mummy. Uncle Qin pulled us aside and whispered to us, "The doctor said the child's face is disfigured, and it can't be fixed." I haven't told him yet. I'm afraid he won't be able to handle it. "You, just pretend you don't know." Aunt Wang was crying so hard she could barely catch her breath. "That child's life is ruined." My mother wiped away a tear too. "It can't be fixed. Then, what will Dayuan do from now on?" Uncle Qin clenched his fist. "Dayuan said he got burned so badly because he was trying to save that girl, Zhang Wenxiao. My son is burned like this, and that girl's family hasn't even shown the slightest bit of concern if they don't give me a proper explanation. I won't let this rest." Aunt Wang took my hand. "Yuzhu, I know Dayuan was foolish. He was blind to what was right in front of him. He's the one who wronged you. But you two have been the closest since you were kids. Could you go and talk some sense into him for me?" To be honest, Aunt Wang has always been good to me. I really couldn't bring myself to say no to her request. 9. When I entered the hospital room, Qin Dayuan was already awake. I thought Qin Dayuan would demand to know why I didn't save him, but the first thing he said when he saw me was, "Feng Yuzhu, have you been reborn?" I was startled, then looked at him with an expression reserved for idiots. "Reborn? Are you dreaming? Did the fever fry your brain?" Qin Dayuan let out a sigh upon hearing my response. "It seems it was all a coincidence. Heaven must have heard my wish, granting me a second chance. This time, since you didn't come to save me, I can be with Zhang Wenxiao." I clenched my fist. So, Qin Dayuan had been reborn too. Qin Dayuan looked at me. "Feng Yuzhu, I owe you nothing now. I finally don't have to look at your disfigured face anymore. You have no idea. Back then, I would wake up in the middle of the night terrified just from the memory of your face. This time, I saved Wenxiao. I can finally marry her." My parents said that as long as I follow the treatment properly, the burns on my face and hands can be healed. "See, I told you I would have been fine even if you hadn't come to rescue me." Qin Dayuan muttered to himself, lost in his own world. The next second, as if realizing something, he suddenly asked me, "Why hasn't Wenxiao come to see me yet? Is she hurt?" I replied, "It seems she injured her arm and leg." Qin Dayuan grew anxious. "Is it serious?" I took the window frame for her. "It's not too serious. The doctor said it can be cured with proper treatment, but you, Qin Dayuan, are different. You'll never get better." "That's good, that's good. Once she's recovered, she'll definitely come to thank me and agree to be with me." I pursed my lips. Qin Dayuan was still dreaming. He really did a good job protecting Zhang Wenxiao. Zhang Wenxiao wasn't seriously injured, just got patched up and was discharged from the hospital. But from start to finish, Zhang Wenxiao never once thought to come and thank Qin Dayuan. From what I know, Zhang Wenxiao kept cursing Qin Dayuan non-stop. She said if it weren't for Qin Dayuan setting off those fireworks to confess to her, she never would have gotten burned. "My looks are my livelihood. It's all that Qin Dayuan's fault with his stupid fireworks. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be burned. If I'm left with a scar, he's going to pay for it. Qin Dayuan's dream of being a hero saving the beauty is about to go up in smoke. The doctor said that Qin Dayuan's right hand is permanently disabled. He'll never be able to do heavy labor again. He can barely even hold chopsticks. If he knew he'd become a cripple, would he regret saving Zhang Wenxiao at that moment? I was profoundly grateful that Qin Dayuan had also been reborn. Justice has been served at last. In my past life, Qin Dayuan kept insisting that if I didn't save him, he could be with Zhang Wenxiao openly and without shame. He even brought Zhang Wenxiao to torment me on my deathbed. He said, "Feng Yuzhu, you're finally dying. After all these years of waiting, I can finally be with Wenxiao." This time, he finally got his wish. I didn't go to save him, but I wonder if he can handle the outcome of being reduced to a useless wreck. I'm really looking forward to seeing the look on Qin Dayuan's face when he finds out Zhang Wenxiao never intended to be with him. After he's become a cripple. 10 Qin Dayuan didn't keep me waiting long. The truth will always come out. After 2 weeks in the hospital, Qin Dayuan realized Zhang Wenxiao still hadn't come to see him. He started sending messages to Zhang Wenxiao. "Wenxiao, are you all healed up? I heard you were discharged from the hospital. How come you haven't come to see me? I was actually planning to confess to you. I wanted to ask if you'd be my girlfriend. Are you busy? If you see this, please send me a reply." "Wenxiao, what's wrong? Why aren't you replying to my messages?" Qin Dayuan sent countless messages to Zhang Wenxiao, but Zhang Wenxiao didn't reply to a single one. Even someone as slow on the uptake as Qin Dayuan realized something was off. He started frantically calling Zhang Wenxiao, but all the calls were rejected. When I tried calling again, I found out Zhang Wenxiao had blocked me. He sent a message to confront Zhang Wenxiao. "Why did you block my number?" The only reply was a red exclamation mark. Qin Dayuan had no choice but to frantically at Zhang Wenxiao in the class group chat. "Did you block me? Why, Zhang Wenxiao? What's your problem? I just saved you. And you turn around and block me. Didn't you say you liked me? Didn't you say you'd be with me if I dumped Feng Yuzhu?" Under the barrage of Qin Dayuan's messages, Zhang Wenxiao finally reached her breaking point. She lashed out in the group chat. "How dare you say you saved me? If you hadn't been such an idiot making fireworks, would they have exploded? I was supposed to become a star. Look at my arm now. How can I possibly still do that? You've destroyed my dream, and you still expect me to be grateful." Qin Dayuan was taken aback. "But if I hadn't saved you by blocking that window frame, you'd have been burned to death. I got severely burned for you. The doctor says it'll take a long time to heal." Zhang Wenxiao shot back. "Screw you, you idiot. If it weren't for you, there wouldn't have been a fire in the first place." Zhang Wenxiao at Qin Dayuan. "Wait a minute, you said you can be cured." Qin Dayuan. "Yeah, the doctor said I can be cured, but it'll take a while. Feeling sorry for me." Zhang Wenxiao sent an exasperated emoji. At Qin Dayuan. "Are you sure? I heard you become a complete wreck." After Zhang Wenxiao sent that message, the entire group chat fell silent for a full 2 minutes. Then, Qin Dayuan started spamming messages like a madman. "Zhang Wenxiao, what do you mean by that? How dare you call me useless? Explain yourself." The doctor clearly said my face and hands can be fully treated. "Are you joking? Don't take advantage of my feelings for you to mess around. Keep this up, and I won't like you anymore." Zhang Wenxiao, say something, will you? "What do you mean by that?" Zhang Wenxiao, maybe, you should ask the doctor again. Qin Dayuan. Zhang Wenxiao, there's a limit to joking. Are you saying my face and hands will never heal? Zhang Wenxiao, yeah, no way, you're lying to me. My parents clearly told me. The doctor said it was only a minor burn. Zhang Wenxiao rolled her eyes. "A minor burn, and you stayed in the hospital for half a month." "I was discharged the same day. Mine was the minor burn." The group chat fell silent again for another 2 minutes. The next second, Qin Dayuan at Edmi. "Yuzhu, you tell them, you know the truth. Tell them my face and arms can be healed." I just smiled, still trying to drag me into the fight. "Huh, no way, I'm just here to watch you two tear each other apart." Seeing that I wasn't replying, Qin Dayuan started tagging Li Kaixiang and other classmates, but no one wanted to get involved in this mess. Not a single person replied. Everyone was just quietly lying low. In the end, the homeroom teacher couldn't help but comfort Qin Dayuan. "There's still a long road ahead. Medicine is advancing, and there will surely be a cure in the future." Qin Dayuan fell silent. Knowing him, he must have gone to find a doctor to ask about his condition. In less than 10 minutes, Qin Dayuan was frantically at Zhang Wenxiao in the group chat. "My face is ruined. I got disfigured saving you. Zhang Wenxiao, you're responsible for this. If it weren't for saving you, my face wouldn't be ruined." Qin Dayuan frantically tagged Zhang Wenxiao, venting his emotions, but before Qin Dayuan could even react, Zhang Wenxiao simply left the group chat. This made it perfectly clear he wanted nothing to do with Qin Dayuan. Qin Dayuan was absolutely furious, rumor has it. He smashes several basins a day in the hospital. He won't even eat the moment you try to feed him. He snatches the bowl and smashes it on the floor. When my mother heard, she sighed and said, I never realized Qin Dayuan had such a terrible temper. It's a good thing he's not with our Yuzhu. With her gentle nature, she'd surely be bullied. My father chimed in, exactly, he was a decent boy when he was young. How did he turn out so badly? My parents don't know this, but in my past life, I was with Qin Dayuan, just as my mom said. I really put up with a lot of grief from him, but thankfully, that's all over now. In this lifetime, Qin Dayuan won't get a single chance to make me suffer again. I thought that was the end of it. To my surprise, just a few days later, I actually saw Qin Dayuan on line 11 on screen. Qin Dayuan appeared disheveled, his face and hands swathed in thick bandages, leaving only his eyes and mouth exposed. Despite the tight wrappings, dark yellow fluid seeped through the bandages covering his skin. One didn't need to see to imagine the state of his ravaged skin. He broke down in tears on camera, saying he was disfigured saving his girlfriend, only for her to reject him and dump him because of it. He said, Zhang Wenxiao, I don't blame you. I know it's hard for you to accept my face right now, but you have to understand, if I hadn't taken that window frame for you, it would be you who was disfigured. You can't just abandon me like this. In the video, Qin Dayuan was weeping and wailing, presenting himself as a pitiful man abandoned by his girlfriend since it was local. Many people in our city came across this video. Many netizens commented below, can we dox this woman? He saved her, and she just turns around and dumps her boyfriend. What kind of person does something like that? I've seen plenty of women like her. They're opportunistic and disloyal. Once they think a guy is useless, they just break up with him. Zhang Wenxiao, you'd better come out and face the online mob. The power of netizens is formidable. In less than an hour, all of Zhang Wenxiao's personal information had been dug up. Qin Dayuan hypocritically advised netizens, my girlfriend just had a momentary lapse in judgment. Please don't go and criticize her. I believe once she comes to her senses, she'll return to my side. However, no matter how much netizens and Qin Dayuan tried to tag Zhang Wenxiao, she gave no response whatsoever. This really doesn't seem like Zhang Wenxiao's style at all. Knowing Zhang Wenxiao, she's definitely brewing up something major. 12 Sure enough, the very next day, Zhang Wenxiao went live to clap back at Qin Dayuan. She even invited several classmates who were present that day, including Qin Dayuan's good buddy, Li Kaixiang. She said the fireworks that exploded were Qin Dayuan's doing. He was planning to confess to me that day, and I was going to turn him down, but before I could even get the words out, the fireworks went off. That window frame was clearly falling right toward Qin Dayuan. He didn't get disfigured saving me at all. These classmates behind me were there at the scene, they can back me up. Qin Dayuan fabricated all these lies just to chase clout. I hope he realizes his mistake. For the sake of our shared history as classmates, I won't pursue legal action against Qin Dayuan. After Feng Yuzhu finished speaking, the classmates behind her all started chiming in, recounting the events of that day. What they said was more or less the same as Zhang Wenxiao's account. Li Kaixiang said, Qin Dayuan, you're my buddy, and I really don't want to see you keep making the same mistakes. I feel terrible about what happened to your face, but you can't drag Zhang Wenxiao into this mess. She's clearly not your girlfriend, and you didn't save her. Please stop trying to guilt trip her. Netizens were completely confused by the whole situation. What on earth is going on? Did he save her or not? I think it's hopeless. My guess is the guy got disfigured, can't find a girlfriend, so now he's trying to pin it on this woman. Not necessarily, I think. What the guy is saying sounds pretty genuine. Don't comment without knowing the full story. I'll wait here for the outcome. Watching Feng Yuzhu speak with such conviction, I had to give her credit. She's quite clever. Really, her arguments were a mix of truth and lies, making it hard to tell right from wrong, and with all her classmates backing her up, it seems she's handed out quite a few favors. I wonder how Qin Dayuan will respond. 13 It wasn't long before my phone rang from an unknown number. As soon as I answered, Qin Dayuan's sinister voice came through. Feng Yuzhu, you have to help me. If you just post a clarification online saying you saw me rescue Zhang Wenxiao, the netizens will definitely believe me. That bitch Zhang Wenxiao, I saved her life. Not only is she ungrateful, but she has the nerve to slander me like this. Weren't you the one who tried to emotionally blackmail her first? Qin Dayuan, you and Zhang Wenxiao really are a perfect match. Qin Dayuan was stunned for a moment, brushed off my sarcasm, and begged me again, you're the only one who can help me now. Li Kaixiang and the others have all been bought off by Zhang Wenxiao. Those bastards. Just wait until I get my hands on them. Feng Yuzhu, We grew up together, you'll definitely help me, right? I've already told you, whatever is going on between you and Zhang Wenxiao has nothing to do with me. Don't call me again." With that, I hung up the phone, completely ignoring Qin Dayuan's furious shouts on the other end of the line. I blocked that number too. The situation between Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao has blown up online. At this point, public opinion is subtly leaning in Zhang Wenxiao's favor. After all, she has quite a few witnesses on her side. Qin Dayuan's scheme backfired spectacularly. He tried to morally blackmail Zhang Wenxiao, but ended up becoming a public enemy himself. After I clicked dislike on the video of Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao hurling insults at each other, the platform stopped recommending their content to me. Just as I expected, I enjoyed several days of peace and quiet. I thought that was the last I'd ever have to do with Qin Dayuan in this lifetime, but just 1 week before I was due to report to university, Uncle Qin knocked on our door. Uncle Qin said, ever since Dayuan found out his face and hands would never heal properly, he's given up on himself. He keeps muttering that it shouldn't have been him, that it wasn't supposed to be this way, that the one who should have been disfigured was Yuzhu. I could see my parents' expressions darken. Uncle Qin quickly explained, Dayuan must have been under a lot of stress to talk nonsense like that. Yuzhu, please don't take it to heart. Dayuan hasn't eaten or drunk anything for days. The doctor says he probably won't make it if this continues. Yuzhu, Dayuan wants to see you. For my sake, as your uncle, could you please go and visit him one more time? Given Dayuan's current deranged state, my parents didn't want me to have any more contact with him. Uncle Qin's hair has turned mostly gray these past few days. He kept assuring me, this is the last time, I promise. I know Dayuan is in such a state now. He's no longer worthy of Yuzhu. He didn't know how to cherish what he had. He had to go and fall for that Zhang Wenxiao. He saved her, and then she just up and left him because she thought he was a cripple. Uncle Qin looked at me, tears streaming down his aged face. Yuzhu, I'm afraid you're the only one who can get through to Dayuan now. Please, do this for your uncle. He's my only son. As he spoke, Uncle Qin actually started to kneel down before me. I quickly stopped him. I agreed to go see Qin Dayuan one last time. To be honest, I had a bit of a selfish motive. I also wanted to see what Qin Dayuan looked like as a broken man. I just want to ask him one thing. Do you regret it? 12. The moment Qin Dayuan saw me, he forced an awkward smile paired with his disfigured face. It was utterly unsettling. His face was so pitted and scarred you could plant vegetables in it. It's far worse than it was in my last life. Yuzhu, I regret it now. You were supposed to come and save me. Let's go back to our previous life. Back then, you were disfigured saving me. I didn't hold it against you. I married you and we had 2 children. Our family of 4 was so happy. Yuzhu, for the sake of our past life, will you stay with me in this one? I let out a soft chuckle and asked him, were we really happy in our past life? Qin Dayuan was momentarily speechless, then replied, of course. We were the model couple. Yuzhu, believe me, let's stay together in this life and have 2 more children. Have children? Do you even have the equipment for that? That's right. Besides his face and arms, Qin Dayuan's manhood was also burned. He can forget about ever having children of his own. Qin Dayuan clenched his fist, clearly stung by my remark. It's fine if we don't have kids. You never liked them anyway. We can just live in our own little world, the 2 of us. Ha! Qin Dayuan was ruining my entire life. Not enough for you. You want to keep tormenting me. Didn't you say that if you had another chance, you wouldn't want me to save you? Having regrets now? Qin Dayuan's pupils dilated. You've been reborn too. I nodded. Qin Dayuan murmured, no wonder you didn't come to save me. Qin Dayuan's smile was uglier than a grimace. Feng Yuzhu, you must be thrilled to see me full of regret, right? In our past life, when your face was scarred, I treated you so terribly. Now that my face is ruined, I thought Zhang Wenxiao wouldn't reject me, but she actually bribed Li Kaixiang and the others to deny that I saved her. I truly regret everything. I don't care for Zhang Wenxiao anymore. It's only now that I've realized the only person who ever truly cared for me was you. You're the only one I've ever loved. Yuzhu, can you ever forgive me? In this lifetime, let's be together properly. Give me a chance to make it up to you. Qin Dayuan keeps professing his love for me, but in truth, he only loves himself. In my past life, when my face was disfigured, he said he loved Zhang Wenxiao. In this life, when his face was disfigured and Zhang Wenxiao rejected him, he claims I am his one true love. I looked at him with contempt. You want to be with me? Take a look in the mirror. Are you even worthy? Qin Dayuan stood there with his mouth agape, staring at me blankly. He was laughing one moment and crying the next, looking completely unhinged. Sensing something was wrong. I turned to leave, but the next second, Qin Dayuan pulled a fruit knife from under the pillow and lunged at me. If we can't be together in this life, then let's die together. In the next life, I swear I'll treat you right. But before the knife could reach me, I kicked Qin Dayuan away. Looks like that month and a half of taekwondo wasn't a waste after all. Might not work on others, but it's more than enough for a weakling who's been bedridden for 2 months. The hospital surveillance cameras captured the whole process of Qin Dayuan assaulting me. Qin Dayuan was arrested and thrown in jail just before they dragged him away. He was still protesting. I didn't want to kill anyone. I just wanted to skip ahead with Feng Yuzhu to our next life. What are you doing? I'm not crazy. Everything I'm saying is true. 13. It wasn't until I got to university that I stumbled upon the follow-up story about Zhang Wenxiao. Zhang Wenxiao had initially gained a bit of notoriety by slandering Qin Dayuan, but she never expected that justice, with its long arm, would eventually catch up. The entire scene of the fire that day was captured on video by a photography enthusiast in the building opposite. He then posted the video online. Zhang Wenxiao immediately faced the consequences. Previously, she tearfully claimed to be emotionally manipulated by Qin Dayuan, appearing fragile and vulnerable on screen. This stirred up a protective instinct in many netizens. Now, netizens have discovered that it was indeed Qin Dayuan who saved her. Not only did she fail to show any gratitude towards Qin Dayuan, she even turned around and bit the hand that fed her. Outraged netizens took advantage of when Zhang Wenxiao was leaving her home and threw a bottle of sulfuric acid in her face. Now, just like Qin Dayuan, her face is disfigured. In my past life, Qin Dayuan and Zhang Wenxiao kept insisting they didn't want me to save them. In this lifetime, I've finally lived up to their expectations. I'm going to start living my own life now. The end. Story 2. On my 25th birthday, Fu Shichuan left me standing alone outside the marriage registration office so he could go watch the northern lights with his stepsister. I used to believe our 7-year relationship was unbreakable, until the sight of him walking away shattered that illusion completely. Be a good girl and wait for me, he texted, as if placating a misbehaving pet. But this time, I'm done waiting. I tore the wedding dress to shreds, burned the love letters, and boarded a flight to Zurich. Later, Fu Shichuan chased me abroad like a madman, his eyes red as he begged for my forgiveness. Looking at his rain-soaked, wretched figure, I let out a soft laugh. Mr. Fu, you're in my boyfriend's way. 1. The bronze bell at the Civil Affairs Bureau tolled 9 times. The sunlight stretched Fu Shichuan's shadow long and thin, slanting across the train of my wedding gown. As he glanced at his watch, the matching couple's bracelet on his wrist flashed a cold gleam, the one I gave him for his birthday last year. Now, it seemed to reflect Xin Yao's sly smile. You're here, he said, his tone as flat as if he were commenting on the weather. I clutched the application form, damp with sweat, watching Xin Yao wave 2 plane tickets. Her peach-colored nails shimmered with an eerie glow in the sunlight. Oh, Sister Yi, you're here. My brother and I were supposed to go abroad on a trip today. What a shame, she said, her eyes lifting at the corners as she deliberately leaned closer to Fu Shichuan's side. I noticed the silver pendant hanging around her neck was identical to the one faintly visible on Fu Shichuan's chest. Fu Shichuan glanced at the long line inside the Civil Affairs Bureau, a slight frown creasing his brow. What's the rush? I'll take you as soon as Yiwani and I get our marriage certificate. His voice, mingled with the cicada's drone, drifted into my ears, sending a chill through my entire body. So, in his heart, marriage was nothing more than an itinerary that could be paused at any time. Xin Yao tugged at his sleeve with a pout. But, brother, there are so many people inside. By the time you're finished, you'll miss your flight. She tilted her head, her innocent gaze sharp as a poisoned arrow. If we miss this aurora, who knows when we'll get another chance like this. Fu Shichuan's hesitation lasted only a second, but it was long enough for me to see the choice in his eyes. We can get the marriage certificate anytime, he said, turning to me with a placating tone. I'll go with Yao Yao to see the aurora first. Be a good girl and wait for me to come back. My throat tightened. The vows I had prepared turned to bitter ash on my tongue. Xin Yao had already pulled Fu Shichuan away. When she turned back to make a face at me, I was suddenly reminded of that rainy night 7 years ago. A little girl, soaked to the bone, was huddled at the entrance of the Fu family villa. It was I who carried her inside, dried her hair, and gave her warm milk to drink. I just knew Sister Yi was the best. Her saccharine voice drifted over. We'll bring you back a present. The black Maybach sped off, kicking up dust. I stared at the empty road. Suddenly, the pearl embellishments on my wedding gown began to rain down, clattering against the asphalt with a sharp, brittle pain. My phone buzzed in my pocket, the screen lighting up with Fu Shichuan's contact name. My hands trembling, I tapped to open it. There was only one short line. The key is in the usual spot. remember to bring in the laundry. The deafening chorus of cicadas washed over me, and I suddenly let out a laugh. So, in this 7-year-long pursuit, I was nothing more than a dispensable background character in his life, too. Outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, the cicada's shriek suddenly grew so piercing it felt like it would split my eardrums. I watched the dust kicked up by the black Maybach gradually settle, the pearls on my wedding dress hem gleaming with a cold light in the sun. My phone vibrated in my palm. It was a message from my mother. "Sweetheart, remember to send me a photo after you get the marriage certificate." Only when my nails dug deep into my own palms did I realize my entire body was trembling. This isn't the first time. Last month, he promised to watch the premiere of the play with me, but he rushed off the moment Xinyao called, on my birthday last year. We had just stepped into the restaurant when Xinyao said she had a fever, and he turned and left without even a word of explanation. Every single time, I told myself he just saw Xinyao as a little sister, but today, he tore away the last shred of pretense with his own hands. My memories suddenly came flooding back to that rainy night 2 years ago. Uncle Fu was in a car accident while on a business trip. It was Xinyao's mother who drove him to the hospital. The day Xinyao moved into the Fu household after our parents remarried, she clung to my arm and sweetly called me sister, but there was a strange glint in her eyes that I couldn't quite decipher. From that moment on, it felt like my life had been put on pause. The cat we were supposed to adopt together became Xinyao's birthday present. The graduation trip we had planned turned into a getaway for just him and Xinyao. Even the proposal I had been longing for was interrupted by her plea of, "Brother, come with me to my piano competition." Whenever I confronted him, hurt and confused, he would always say, "Yao Yao feels insecure. Don't take it to heart." The curious glances from passers-by on the street finally made me realize I'd been standing in the same spot for far too long. The wind whipped the hem of my wedding dress into disarray, a perfect mirror for my shattered hopes. I suddenly remembered the medical report I'd seen in his study yesterday while tidying up. Xinyao had been diagnosed with anxiety, and the doctor's note read requires family support. So, in his heart, I didn't even qualify as family. I took out my phone. The most recent group photo in my album was from half a year ago. In it, Xinyao was clinging to him, beaming with joy, while I stood in the corner, forcing a smile. My finger scrolled across the screen, all those sweet chat histories, the carefully saved movie ticket stubs, the first lipstick he ever gave me. In that moment, they all felt ridiculous and bitterly ironic. I took one last look at the red banner at the Civil Affairs Bureau's entrance that read a happy union for 100 years, then turned and walked into the coffee shop by the roadside. As I removed the veil, my long hair cascaded over my shoulders. The reflection in the mirror showed my eyes rimmed red, but I finally saw the truth of this relationship clearly. In Fu Shichuan's life, I was never anything more than Xinyao's backup plan. The server handed me a glass of warm water. I opened the notes app on my phone and typed the first line. Yuani's rebirth plan begins today. The sunlight outside the window was just as dazzling, but this time, I was determined not to be a supporting character in someone else's story. 3. It wasn't until the motion sensor light in the foyer flickered on that I realized I had been sitting motionless in the back of the taxi for 40 minutes. The hem of my wedding dress was dusted with plain tree catkins from the street. The diamond hairpin dug painfully into my temple. The reflection in the mirror looked like the lead in some absurd silent film. "You're back, sweetheart." My father leaned out from the kitchen, an apron tied around his waist. A half-cut tomato on the chopping board was still oozing juice. "Where's Xiao Fu? What would you two like for lunch?" The silver at his temples glinted softly under the warm yellow light, making a metallic taste rise in my throat. My fingers tightened abruptly around my pro clutch, the metal chain biting deep into my palm. He had an urgent matter come up. "We'll get the marriage certificate another time." Before the words had fully left my mouth, my mother came downstairs cradling a neatly folded wedding quilt. The satin, embroidered with twin lotus flowers, glowed with a gentle sheen in the crook of her arm. How could this happen? My mother's gasp mingled with the dull thud of the quilt hitting the floor. "Today is your 25th birthday, and the date was set long ago." Her voice trailed off. Probably noticing my rigid posture and red-rimmed eyes, my father's cleaver slammed down on the cutting board with a heavy thud, sending ripples through the water in the glass. The air suddenly congealed, heavy as lead. I bent down to pick up the wedding quilt. The icy chill of the satin spread from my fingertips. "It really was just an accident," he said. "Next week he'd." The lie caught in my throat as a flood of all the stolen next times Xinyao had taken from me suddenly surged up. "Last year, he said next time he'd take me to see the cherry blossoms, but he ended up taking Xinyao to Kyoto. Last month, he promised next time he'd celebrate my birthday with me, only to get blind drunk at Xinyao's victory party. My father silently turned off the gas stove, and the hum of the range had gradually faded away. He walked over to me, his rough palm gently brushed past my reddened eyes. This man who once lifted me high above his head, his voice thick with unmistakable heartache, asked, "Sweetheart, tell Daddy, did he hurt you?" The tears came in a sudden flood. I threw myself into my father's arms, the beaded ornaments on my wedding dress pressed painfully into my skin. But it was nothing compared to the dense, dull ache in my chest. My mother, trembling, drew me into her embrace, the scent of jasmine in her hair mingled with the saltiness of tears, brewing into a bitter cup in the fading light. The setting sun outside the window stretched our three shadows long across the floor, piecing them together like a fragmented jigsaw puzzle. For on the 7th day after Fu Shichuan left, I folded the wedding dress and placed it at the very bottom of the camphorwood chest. The smell of mothballs mingled with the lingering scent of perfume, stinging my nose and bringing tears to my eyes. My father would often see me late at night, hunched over the computer researching foreign universities. The desk lamp cast a deep shadow across his eyes, a perfect mirror of his own younger self burning the midnight oil at work. "Sweetheart, tell me the truth." One evening after dinner, he suddenly pushed his bowl away, the porcelain spoon clinking sharply against the rim. My mother's hand, holding her chopsticks, trembled slightly, the steam rising from the table blurred my vision. I stared at the oil droplets floating in my bowl. All those carefully woven lies suddenly felt weightless. "He went to see the northern lights with Xinyao. He won't be back for 3 months." My father shot up from his chair, its legs scraping against the floor with a harsh, grating sound. He snatched up the car keys and made a dash for the door. I stumbled after him, grabbing his arm. "Dad, don't go." My fingernails dug deep into the thick wool of his sweater. "It's no use, he doesn't care at all." In that moment, the countless nights of being stood up, Xinyao's taunting gaze, and Fu Shichuan's dismissive "next time," all of it coalesced into razor-sharp blades, slicing my heart to pieces. Mother covered her mouth, her sobs muffled. Father's chest heaved violently before he finally sank heavily onto the sofa. His white hair looked painfully stark under the light, reminding me of when he carried me up Mount Tai as a child, his back as straight and unyielding as a mountain. But now, that mountain seemed to have hunched over in an instant. "Dad, I want to study abroad." I knelt before him, holding his calloused hands. "I've applied to a biology lab at ETH Zurich. The interview is next week." My fingertips brushed against the thick calluses on his palms. Marks left from hauling bricks to save up for my tuition. My father's hand trembled as he cupped my face, his thumb wiping the tear from the corner of my eye. "If you want to go, then go. I'll see you off." 3 months was enough time for the wound to scab over. I wrote recommendation letters in the lab late at night and memorized vocabulary in the morning light. Fu Shichuan's social media feed was a constant stream of updates, skiing, diving, Michelin-starred restaurants, but my shadow never appeared in them again. Then, on a stormy night, I got his text, "I'm coming home the day after tomorrow, pick me up." From the airport, the message glowed on the screen for a long time before I finally dragged it to the trash. Rain tapped against the window pane outside, staring at my reflection in the mirror, goggles on, adjusting the microscope. I suddenly laughed. Yuani, once trapped in a cycle of waiting, had finally found a crack of new life in the folds of time. When Fu Shichuan landed, he was greeted only by the empty airport terminal. I was already on a flight to Zurich, watching the clouds churn like poetry outside the window, each one etched with freedom. 5. The morning mist hadn't yet lifted beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Fu Shichuan dialed my number for the 3rd time, only to hear the automated female voice repeat, "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." Irritated, he loosened his tie. His gaze swept over the dusty pair of couple's slippers by the entrance. Mine had long since vanished. "Don't be mad, big brother." Xinyao wrapped her arms around his waist from behind. A cup of coffee in her hand, the scent of orange blossoms from her hair mingled with the milky aroma as she leaned in. "Sister Yi is really too much, treating you like this right after your flight. Could it be she's trying to get a hold over you from now on?" Her fingers unconsciously traced the watchband on his wrist, the very style I had personally chosen for him, now entwined with her cherry blossom painted nails. Fu Shichuan crushed the soda can in his hand, the sharp crumple of aluminum startled the sparrows outside the window into flight. He remembered how I had stood at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau before he left, my wedding dress billowing in the wind, yet still nodding obediently and saying, "I'll wait for you to come back." That docility now felt glaringly sharp in his memory. He scoffed, "Just a childish tantrum, leaving her alone for a few days, we'll sort it out." At 4 in the morning, the headlights of a car on the winding mountain road sliced through the Darkness. Xinyao was dozing in the passenger seat, her eyelashes casting fan-shaped shadows beneath her eyes as the first blush of dawn tinged the sky. She suddenly grabbed Fu Shichuan's arm. "Look, Gidge." The wind at the mountain's peak whipped her long hair against his face, carrying a scent of orange blossoms that was both familiar and strange. Fu Shichuan raised his phone to take a picture. In the viewfinder, just as Xinyao stood on her tiptoes to kiss his cheek, the lens suddenly went blurry. He remembered last year's birthday, when I waited for him past midnight holding a cake, and ended up smearing melted frosting on the tip of his nose, my eyes crinkling with laughter. Back then, he thought I was childish, but now, as if possessed, he deleted the photo he had just taken. "Why aren't you posting it on WeChat Moments?" Xinyao, sensing something was off, reached for his phone. Fu Shichuan deftly avoided her, his Adam's apple bobbing as he spoke. "The light isn't good." In the distance, a sea of clouds churned. Gazing at the rising sun, he suddenly couldn't tell which was more blinding, the morning glow before him or the memory of the pearls on my wedding gown. 6. Another month passed. Fu Shichuan hadn't contacted me during that time, nor had he received any word from me. Finally, he couldn't hold back any longer and came looking for me at the Yi residence. The relentless drone of summer cicadas beat against the brass door of the Yi family villa. Fu Shichuan raised his hand to knock, his knuckles already flushed red from the sun. A shadow flickered behind the peephole in the foyer, but it was the family's housekeeper who opened the heavy iron door. Just a crack, a wave of chilled air, laced with an unfamiliar scent, washed over him. "Who are you looking for, sir?" The housekeeper's tone was ice cold. Fu Shichuan loosened his tie, a fine sweat beading on the nape of his neck. "I'm looking for you, Wani." Her phone's been off. Before the words fully left his mouth, the sound of shattering porcelain echoed from the second floor. He looked up instinctively and met the bloodshot eyes of Yuani's father. The old man leaned against the carved railing, the cigarette between his fingers glowing and fading. Ash drifted down, dusting the expensive Persian carpet. "Young Master Fu, with your packed schedule, what brings you here, Mr. Ye's voice grated like sandpaper on metal. "My daughter made it clear she doesn't want to see any unnecessary visitors." The grandfather clock downstairs suddenly chimed, in the heavy tolling. Fu Shichuan's eyes fell on the family portrait on the living room wall. In the photo, I stood between my parents in my graduation gown, beaming. Beside the frame, the space that should have held our picture together was empty, now occupied by a pot of thriving pothos. Xinyao's words suddenly exploded in his ears. "Miss Shi is just trying to control you, playing this disappearing act on purpose." But the oppressive atmosphere in the Yi household now filled him with an inexplicable dread. The unsent photos saved in his phone's album, the chat window he'd idly opened and snapped shut during late-night work sessions, all those moments from what he dismissed as her tantrums, suddenly felt searing. "Uncle, I know I was wrong." He took half a step forward, the iron gate groaning in protest. "I shouldn't have stood her up. Please, let me apologize to her in person, Mr. Yi let out a sudden, cold laugh, Ash tumbling onto his polished leather shoes. "An apology? Do you think a simple sorry can salvage the dignity my daughter lost waiting for 3 hours outside the Civil Affairs Bureau?" Fu Shichuan froze on the spot, memories flooding back like a tidal wave on that sweltering afternoon 3 months ago. My hand clutching the application form must have been colder than this iron gate is now. The image of Mrs. Yi rushing downstairs with the neatly folded wedding quilt suddenly became vivid. It dawned on him that within all those details he had overlooked lay a girl's entire world of hope and despair. "Where on earth has she gone?" His voice rose involuntarily as Mr. Yi turned. The hem of his suit jacket brushed against the stair railing, knocking loose a withered pothos leaf. "Young Master Fu, you'd better mind your own affairs. That Shin girl has been frequenting the Fu Corporation lately. Best the old master doesn't find out." The iron gate slammed shut before him. Fu Shichuan stared at the red silk ribbon tied around the door handle. "The one I tied there myself last year, claiming it would bring good luck." The cicada's drone grew increasingly shrill. He fished out his phone. In his contacts, the entry 411 was struck through with a line, and the number that would never connect again now lay buried at the very bottom of the trash bin. 7. The carved wooden door had just been pushed open halfway when a celadon cup, glazed with a crackle pattern, came hurtling through the air with a violent gust. Fu Shichuan instinctively jerked his head aside. A shard of porcelain grazed his temple, and blood trickled down his jawline, staining his expensive, custom-tailored suit. In the refracted light spots from the crystal chandelier in the foyer, the scattered porcelain shards glittered like sharp, fractured starlight. "Dad!" Xinyao shrieked, rushing forward, the pearl clip in her hair scattered pinpricks of light with the sudden movement. how could you do this to brother? He's bleeding. She pulled out a silk handkerchief and pressed it against Fu Shichuan's wound, her fingers trembling slightly as they made contact with the blood. Fu Shichuan looked up, meeting his father's bloodshot eyes directly. Dad, you're back. His usually immaculate silver hair was now disheveled, like withered grass in the wind. The second button of his deep gray Zhongshan jacket was missing, revealing a taut neck. How am I back? If I hadn't come back, how would I have discovered that in the mere 6 months I was away on business? You managed to lose the Fu family's perfect daughter-in-law. Fu snatched the sandalwood paperweight from the desk and slammed it down with a heavy thud. How could you treat Wani like that? Dad, it's not brother's fault. Xinyao suddenly stepped in front of Fu Shichuan, her eyelashes glistening with unshed tears. It was Sister Yi. Enough. Father Fu's roar made the crystal chandelier tremble. Yao Yao, Mingchuan is your brother. How much longer are you going to keep up this nonsense? Staggering, Father Fu braced himself against the liquor cabinet, his knuckles turning white from the force of his grip. Your mother saved my life all those years ago. I raised you as my own daughter, not so you could ruin your brother's marriage. Xinyao's lips trembled violently, the meticulously applied rosewood lipstick bled into a ghastly outline against her pallid mouth. I just didn't want brother to be manipulated. Enough. Fu Shichuan suddenly seized Xinyao's wrist with such force that she cried out in pain. Dad, this has nothing to do with Yao Yao, it was me. Before he could finish, a Jingdezhen celadon vase whizzed past his ear and smashed against the wall as the porcelain shards exploded outward. Fu Shichuan was transported back to 3 months prior, to the image of pearls scattering from my wedding gown and rolling across the ground outside the Civil Affairs Bureau. Old Mr. Fu's chest heaved so violently it was visible even from 3 paces away. His aged voice was laced with a tremor of utter despair. Back then, Wani's mother saved your mother during that difficult birth. On her deathbed, your mother clutched my hand and said, Old Fu, you must make sure Wani finds happiness. And this is how you make her happy. Xinyao's sobbing cut off abruptly. Fu Shichuan stared at the wreckage strewn across the floor. A trickle of blood from his temple dripped into his eye, the sting making his eyes red and ate. The instant Xinyao's sobs ceased, the gilded, carved door was thrown open. The scent of Chanel No. 5 rushed in, carried on the sound of frantic footsteps. Mrs. Shen stormed in on 10-centimeter red-soled heels, her pearl earrings swinging violently. Old Fu, what on earth are you doing? You're scaring the child. She spread her arms to shield the trembling Xinyao behind her. A finger tipped in crimson polish pointed accusingly at the chaos. Just look at what you've done to this house, Mr. Fu trembled with rage, the ashtray he'd snatched up hovering in mid-air. Wani's mother gave her life to save Aero back then, and now look at us. The Fu family has become the ungrateful wretch. His voice cracked with emotion, his memory flashing back to that blood-soaked delivery room. On her deathbed, Aero begged me to see Wani married into our family with all the honor she deserves. And now, enough. Mrs. Shen's shrill cry cut him off, a strand of her meticulously styled curls coming loose. Keeping a promise is one thing, but we can't force the children. She turned to Fu Shichuan, her gaze lingering for a split second on the blood staining his temple before darting away. Mingchuan and Yao Yao grew up together. It's only natural they're close. Marriage requires mutual consent. Are we really going to force Mingchuan to marry someone who— Shut up. Fu Shichuan's roar made the crystals on the chandelier tremble. He pressed a hand to his still bleeding wound, droplets of blood falling from between his fingers onto the expensive Persian rug. Mother, you know perfectly well what Wani means to me. Before he could finish, Xinyao suddenly collapsed to the floor, burying her face in her hands with a wail. It's all my fault. I'm the problem. I never should have come to the Fu house and made everything so difficult for everyone. Mrs. Shen immediately crouched down and wrapped her arms around her daughter, shooting a venomous glare at Mr. Fu. Look what you've driven her to. If I hadn't driven you to the hospital all those years ago, you'd be rotting in some gutter right now. Her words landed like a sledgehammer, instantly freezing the already tense atmosphere. Mr. Fu's hand fell limply to his side, the ashtray thudded onto the coffee table, stirring up a cloud of dust in the quiet room. Fu Shichuan watched the unfolding drama, a throbbing pulse beating at his temples. In his memory, Mrs. Shen had always been gentle and poised, but now she resembled a mother beast with her hackles raised. He suddenly remembered his childhood, whenever he and I had a falling out. Mrs. Shen would smile and say, Mingchuan must yield to Wani. But now, those hypocritical masks had finally been torn to shreds under the strain of self-interest and harsh truth. 9. Fu Mingchuan listened to the rising and falling cries behind him, then suddenly threw his head back and laughed. The laughter startled the sparrows from under the eaves, and it echoed through the empty living room. Shen Yao's tearful voice, Mrs. Shen's scolding, and father's furious roar all became a ridiculous backdrop of noise. Stop, where do you think you're going, Mr. Fu's roar carried the last vestige of his authority. Fu Mingchuan didn't look back. He merely wiped the blood and sweat from his face with his hand and turned to walk out the door. Shen Yao stumbled forward, her slender fingers clutching at his sleeve. Brother, I didn't accompany you. Before she could finish, Fu Mingchuan unhesitatingly shook off her hand. As the silk shirt cuff slipped from her fingertips, he suddenly remembered that rainy night 7 years ago. With the same force, he had led the drenched me into the Fu family mansion, yet now, the lingering warmth in his palm felt so alien and cold. The carved door slammed shut behind him. Fu Mingchuan stood on the steps, gazing at the leaden sky. Pedestrians hurried along the street, none noticing the man in the bloodstained suit. He walked aimlessly, his leather shoes splashing through puddles, the spray dampening his trouser cuffs as the first raindrop landed on the wound at his temple. Fu Mingchuan finally felt the pain then. The rain poured down in sheets, drenching him completely. Memories, like old photographs washed by rain, slowly came into focus. My hand clutching the application form at the Civil Affairs Bureau trembled so violently I could barely hold the paper. The messages I sent him from the late-night lab were laced with weary yet tender concern. On his birthday, I waited with a cake until 3 in the morning, left to make a wish over extinguished candles. His knee slammed hard onto the bluestone pavement, yet Fu Mingchuan felt no pain. Rainwater mingled with tears slid into his mouth, bitter and salty. Staring at the blurred streetlights through the curtain of rain, he finally saw clearly how absurd these years had been. All the tenderness he had overlooked, all the sincerity he had trampled, now surged over him like a tidal wave, drowning him completely. Yuani, Yuani, his voice was swallowed by the rain, yet it echoed relentlessly in the depths of his heart. It turned out that long ago, each time he pushed me away, he had already lost the most precious thing in his life, and this torrential downpour finally washed away all his arrogance and conceit, leaving behind nothing but a hollow, cavernous regret. 10. The sharp sting of antiseptic flooded his nostrils. Fu Shichuan's eyes snapped open, the glare from the fluorescent light exploding across his retinas like a blizzard of white. The 4 lines swayed violently with his sudden movement, the needle nearly tearing free from the back of his hand. Mr. Fu, you're awake. His assistant, Xiao Zhou, sprang up from the folding chair, the collar of his suit still damp with rain. Fu Shichuan ripped the gauze from his temple, his throat felt raw, scraped by sandpaper. My phone, where's my phone? The metal headboard slammed against the wall with a dull thud, ignoring the blood welling on his hand. He frantically clawed at the hem of his hospital gown. The phone, smeared with mud, was thrust into his palm, its screen already cracked into a spiderweb pattern. Fu Shichuan's fingers trembled as he entered the passcode. His fingertip hovered over Yuani in his contacts for 3 seconds before he pressed the call button in near desperation. The relentless busy tone pierced his eardrums. Yuani, he roared into the receiver. Yuani, pick up the phone. Mr. Fu, please calm down. Xiao Zhou hurriedly steadied his trembling shoulders. The doctor said, your high fever has caused acute pneumonia. You need complete rest. Find her. Fu Shichuan suddenly seized his assistant's wrist, his knuckles turning white from the strain. The hospital bed railing clanged violently from the impact. Now, immediately, go find Yuani for me. Tear the world apart if you have to. Check every airline, every immigration record. Spare no expense. The heart monitor shrieked a piercing alarm. But Fu Shichuan paid it no mind. He pressed his phone to his chest, its screen flickering on and off, illuminating his bloodshot eyes. Shen Yao rushed in on 10-centimeter stilettos, the scent of Chanel No. 5 clashing with the sharp odor of disinfectant. The pearl necklace at her chest swayed with her ragged breaths, her hair tips still damp with rain. Brother, what's wrong? What happened? Why are you in the hospital? Get out. The veins on Fu Shichuan's hand bulged as he clenched his phone, his knuckles pressing white against the metal casing. He stared at that familiar face, yet it suddenly felt utterly alien. Shen Yao's trembling lashes, her tearful eyes on the verge of crying, overlapped with the image of her clinging to his arm, coquettishly pleading outside the Civil Affairs Bureau 3 months ago. Brother, Shen Yao froze in place, her meticulously painted rosewood-colored lips parting slightly. I heard you collapsed on the street, drenched in the rain for so long. I said get out. Fu Shichuan grabbed the thermos cup by his pillow and hurled it at her. The ceramic cup whizzed past her ear and smashed against the wall. Shards flew, cutting her cheek. Shen Yao stumbled backward in terror, the small of her back hitting the hospital bed railing. Tears rolled down her scratched cheek. Why, I was just worried about you. Worried. Fu Shichuan ripped the 4 needle from the back of his hand, blood snaking down the tube. You were worried, so you dragged me away from the Civil Affairs Bureau. Worried, so you used tears every time to make me break my promises. He pushed himself up, leaning in until his breath fanned. Her pale face, Xin Yao, dropped the act. Her high heels slipped on the tiled floor. Staggering, she caught herself against the wall, the couple's pendant around her neck swinging with a cold glint. Fu Shichuan stared at that flash of silver, suddenly remembering how, 7 years ago when I put the necklace on him, my eyes held the entire galaxy. Starting today, don't let me see you again. The door to the hospital room slammed shut, and Fu Shichuan collapsed back onto the bed. 11. The light in the hospital corridor was a sickly, frosty white. Xin Yao leaned against the wall, her delicate makeup smudged and streaked by tears. She clutched her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white, her nails leaving faint scratches on the screen. Staring at the firmly closed door, a vine of jealousy coiled and spread wildly in her heart. Yuani, she seethed, what gives you the right? How can you make Fu Shichuan care so much about you? Memories of the past washed over her like a tide. She recalled all the time she had spent with Fu Shichuan, the carefully crafted gentleness and dependence she had shown, all of it shattered to pieces in the face of Yuani. I used to think that as long as I stayed by Fu Shichuan's side, he would eventually see my worth, but now, for the sake of that woman I've hurt time and again, he's being so utterly ruthless to me. Xin Yao bit her lower lip, a flicker of malice passing through her eyes. With trembling fingers, she dialed a number from her phone. Hello, find out where Yuani is right now, use any means necessary, and be quick, then send me the location. Hearing the agreement on the other end of the line, she hung up and pressed the phone tightly against her chest, as if it were a lifeline to cling to. Fu Shichuan, Yuani, do you really think you can escape? Xin Yao murmured to herself, a twisted smile curling her lips. Once I find you, everything can still be turned around. She smoothed the wrinkles from her skirt, straightened her back, and her high heels clicked sharply against the corridor floor. Each step carried the desperate resolve of someone burning their bridges. 12. The chilly autumn rain of Zurich pattered against the restaurant window. As I twirled spaghetti on my fork, I listened to Senior Gu Xian analyze improvements to the new cell culture medium. He adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, the cuffs of his sleeves carrying the distinct scent of laboratory disinfectant, a stark contrast to the faint hint of cedarwood cologne I remembered from Fu Shichuan. What a refined pastime, Miss Yi. The jarring Mandarin suddenly cut through the surrounding German chatter. Xin Yao, in 10-centimeter red-soled heels, glided gracefully through the carved archway flanked by 2 bodyguards in black. She carved a path of empty space through the bustling restaurant. The pigeon-egg diamond on her finger made me squint, her false eyelashes still dotted with moisture. Finally decided to show your face after hiding abroad all this time. Senior Gu Xian set down his coffee cup, the metal spoon clinking softly against the rim. I pressed down on his arm as he started to rise, watching Xin Yao slam her phone onto the table. The moment the screen lit up, the familiar scene hit me so hard it stole my breath. Fu Shichuan had his arm around her shoulder as they watched the sunrise from the mountaintop, the morning glow merging their shadows into an intimate silhouette. Big brother said I can go back to Iceland to see the northern lights anytime I want, as long as it makes me happy. As Xin Yao leaned in, the scent of Chanel No. 5, laced with malice, washed over me. Her wine-red polished fingernail traced Fu Shichuan's face in the photo. Sister Yi, do you think he remembers you right now? Oh, by the way, he was calling my name even when he was in the hospital. Outside the glass window, the rain suddenly intensified, droplets drumming a sharp, staccato rhythm against the awning. I picked up my napkin and dabbed the corner of my mouth. Under Xin Yao's stunned gaze, I gently pushed the phone back toward her. Miss Shen, I recall Uncle Fu saying that the Fu family's daughter-in-law must maintain a basic level of decorum. I pointed at the couple's pendant swaying on her chest in the photo. But then, parading around with another woman's fiancé's token does seem rather in keeping with your usual style. Senior Gu Xian let out a soft chuckle. He pulled a handkerchief from his suit's inner pocket and dabbed his lips with an elegant grace. Madam, if you're here to sell tourist souvenirs, I'm afraid we're not interested. As he stood up, a scent of cedar and fresh grass wafted around him, and he positioned himself firmly in front of me. Now, please leave. Xin Yao's face flushed and paled in quick succession. When she snatched up her phone, the tempered glass screen protector cracked with a spiderweb pattern. Before turning away, she shot me a venomous glare. Yuani, don't get too cocky. I lowered my gaze to the water droplets beating on the rim of my cup. my fingernails unconsciously picking at the ceramic pattern. I'm sorry, Senior, you had to witness that embarrassing scene. Senior Gu Xian had already settled back into his seat. With his long, well-defined fingers, he slid the sugar bowl toward me, the metal spoon clinking softly against the porcelain. What embarrassing scene? He asked, raising an eyebrow. The look behind his glasses was gentle yet unwavering. More importantly, are you alright? Outside the window, the rain grew more urgent and heavy. Through the downpour, Xin Yao's receding figure had long since blurred into the distance. My hand, holding the sugar cube, paused. The cube plopped into the coffee, sending tiny ripples across the surface. Sorry you had to see that, Senior. She's your ex-boyfriend's sister. Senior Gu Xian's voice held a casual, amused lilt as he pulled out a tissue and gently dabbed the coffee splashed on the back of my hand. The composition of that photo on her phone was too deliberate, even the posing looked like a magazine shoot. He adjusted his glasses, his gaze behind the lenses sharp with an academic's keenness. But you seem stronger than you looked in that picture. I looked up sharply, meeting his clear, steady gaze. The warm yellow light fell on his eyelashes, casting delicate shadows beneath his eyes, just like the shimmering specks of light seen dancing under a microscope in the lab. My memory suddenly flashed back to the day we first met. He stood before the genetic map, explaining the experimental steps to me. A half-eaten chocolate bar peeked out from his lab coat pocket. A reward, he said, for students pulling all-nighters. Actually, I should apologize, Senior Gu Xian said, suddenly serious. His slender fingers tapped lightly on the table. I shouldn't have used such a harsh tone just now. It's just that I couldn't bear to see. His voice trailed off abruptly, but the tips of his ears quietly flushed pink. 13. The deep autumn in Zurich arrived without warning, the maple leaves frost-stricken and fallen, carpeting the path outside the laboratory like scattered gold. I was walking to the office with my lab reports when I overheard whispers coming from around the corridor corner. I heard that Chinese girl got into the lab through improper means. No wonder she's always alone. She must have a guilty conscience. A crumpled ball of paper suddenly flew from behind, a white A4 sheet tracing an arc through the air. It landed at my feet and unfurled, revealing the words homewrecker scrawled in bold red ink. I bent down to pick it up, and when I looked up, I saw Xin Yao leaning against the ornate doorframe, a triumphant smirk on her lips. She was surrounded by a few blonde, blue-eyed girls who were all pointing and whispering in my direction. Miss Shi, you're looking rather pale, Xin Yao said, striding over in her knee-high boots, the overpowering scent of Chanel perfume making me dizzy. Could it be I hit a nerve? Feeling guilty, she deliberately raised her voice. After all, breaking up someone's family isn't exactly something you'd want getting around, is it? I clenched the report in my hand, my fingernails digging crescent-shaped dents into its hardcover. Ever since she found me here, this scene has played out almost every single day. My inbox was flooded with anonymous complaints, my lab samples were mysteriously swapped, and even a professor subtly inquired about my connection to the Fu Corporation. Xin Yao, what exactly do you want? I finally spoke up, my voice echoing in the empty hallway. What do I want? She suddenly leaned in, her warm breath hitting my ear. I want you to leave Fu Shichuan, leave Zurich, and disappear from his world forever. She straightened up, pulled a stack of photos from her bag, and flung them in front of me. If you don't want these photos to get out, you'll do as you're told. In the photo, Fu Shichuan was rushing me, burning with fever, into the hospital. Yet, from the angle Xin Yao had secretly captured, it looked as if the two of us were locked in a passionate kiss. I stared at the tense line of Fu Shichuan's jaw in the picture, and the memory suddenly pierced my heart. The trust one once believed was unbreakable had now become a weapon that wounded me. You have 3 days. Xin Yao left, her footsteps crunching on the carpet of maple leaves, leaving behind an icy warning. The wind snatched up the photographs, turning them into a blinding swirl of crimson in the air. I watched her figure recede into the distance, clenching my fist as I vowed to myself, this time, I will not back down. 14. The rooftop wind, carrying the chill of late autumn, tangled the strands of hair that had fallen across my shoulders. I huddled by the rusted iron gate, clutching the photos Xin Yao had maliciously spread. The corners were already crumpled and damp with sweat. In the distance, Lake Zurich shimmered, yet its surface reflected not a single trace of warmth. Knew I'd find you here. A familiar voice came from behind, carrying a steady, reassuring calm. Senior Gu Xian held a dark suit jacket in his arms. His gaze behind his glasses was gentle yet resolute. The rooftop of the lab building is a good place to escape reality. I forced a smile, my voice trembling almost imperceptibly. Senior, what brings you here? He sat down beside me and gently draped his jacket over my shoulders. The scent of cedarwood mixed with fresh grass enveloped me instantly. I heard someone posted some strange things by the lab door. He reached out and took the photo from my hand. His eyes scanned the distorted image, his brow furrowing slightly. The composition is too forced, even the lighting doesn't match up. I looked at him in surprise, only to find him studying the photo with intense focus, as if analyzing experimental data. I knew what kind of person you were from the moment you first stepped into the lab. He took off his glasses to clean them, his gaze behind the lens is clear and sincere. Someone who gets upset over a failed cell culture, who stays up late helping a junior revise their paper. How could someone like you ever do those things? The wind picked up suddenly, swirling a few maple leaves in the air. I gazed at the distant Alps, and my eyes suddenly grew hot. So this is what it feels like to be trusted. It's even warmer than the Zurich sun. How about we go get a proper meal? Senior Gu Xian suddenly stood up, extending his hand to me. With a smile, I heard there's a new Chinese restaurant on the corner that serves authentic sweet and sour pork ribs. He shook his phone, its screen showing the restaurant's review page. My treat. Consider it a celebration for you being on the verge of solving this little problem. I placed my hand in his palm, feeling the thin calluses on his fingertips, marks left from years of holding test tubes. 15. The aroma of sweet and sour pork ribs still lingered on my tongue when the restaurant's carved wooden door was suddenly flung open. A cold gust of wind rushed in, carrying with it the damp, metallic scent of Zurich's rain. Fu Shichuan was drenched, his shirt clinging to his chest. Droplets from his hair dripped onto the expensive Persian rug, spreading dark stains. His gaze cut through the crowded room, locking directly onto my hand, which was clutching a pair of chopsticks. Yuani, his voice was hoarse, grating like sandpaper. He rushed over in a few strides, knocking over a wine glass from the neighboring table. The crimson wine snaked down the tablecloth, pooling into a small puddle at my feet. He grabbed my wrist roughly, the heat from his palm startling. Why did you block me? Why did you leave without a word? I stumbled as I was yanked, the porcelain spoon clattering onto the bone china plate. Senior Gu Xian rose immediately, the hem of his suit jacket sweeping across the table as he positioned himself firmly between us. Sir, please let her go, he said, his voice calm yet edged with an unyielding coldness. His gaze from behind the gold-rimmed glasses was as sharp as a scalpel. Fu Shichuan's movements froze abruptly. He stared at Senior Gu Xian's hand resting on my shoulder, his Adam's apple bobbing. Raindrops traced the sharp line of his jaw and fell onto their intertwined fingers. Who is he? His voice carried a tremor I'd never heard before, as if something had just shattered inside his chest. The hushed whispers in the restaurant fell into a terrifying silence. I stared at Fu Shichuan's pale face, remembering the sight of his back as he turned away from the Civil Affairs Bureau 3 months ago, and the sweet photo of him and Xin Yao in his social media feed. The pain in my wrist suddenly sharpened. I took a deep breath and spoke slowly in Chinese, tinged with a Swiss-German accent. Mr. Fu, this is my lab partner, Gu Xian. Senior Gu Xian smoothly moved to shield me, pulling a silk handkerchief from his suit's inner pocket to gently dab at the red mark on my wrist. The gesture made Fu Shichuan's pupils contract sharply. He suddenly reached out to pull Senior away, only to have his own wrist seized in a precise grip. The tense standoff between the two men weighed heavily in the air, until a waiter cautiously approached to ask if they needed any assistance. Mr. Fu, I stepped past my senior and looked directly into Fu Shichuan's bloodshot eyes. We're over. As the words left my mouth, the aroma of stir-fried chilies wafted from the kitchen, unexpectedly reminding me of the first time I visited the Fu family 7 years ago, when he secretly slipped a piece of braised pork into my bowl. And now, those tender moments had become poisoned memories. Fu Shichuan's lips parted, but in the end, only a broken, light laugh escaped. He released his grip, took 2 steps back, his leather shoes crushing through the spilled red wine on the floor. Before leaving, he cast one last look at me. That gaze was like a rusted knife, blunt, yet it still managed to carve fine, bleeding lines deep in my heart. By the time the restaurant door clicked shut again, the steam had long vanished from the sweet and sour pork ribs. All that remained was the relentless autumn rain outside, drumming against the Zurich night. 16. Ever since that unpleasant parting in the restaurant, Fu Shichuan became an inescapable shadow, beginning to harass me with a frantic obsession. In the early morning, as I stepped out of my apartment building, I saw his black Maybach parked by the curb. The car was covered in raindrops from the night before, glinting with a cold light under the morning sun. He was leaning against the car door, his chin stubbled with beard, his eyes bloodshot. Clearly, he hadn't slept all night. The moment he saw me, he straightened up and strode quickly toward me. Wani, we need to talk. His voice held a note of pleading as he reached out, trying to grasp my arm. I sidestepped to avoid him, casting a cold glance his way. There's nothing to discuss, Mr. Fu, please don't show your face around me again. Undeterred, he followed closely behind me. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have left you at the civil affairs office that day. It was Xinyao. She set it up on purpose. I stopped in my tracks and turned to glare at him. Set it up? For the past 2 years, ever since she entered the Fu household, when have you not abandoned me for her? Were all of those setups too, Fu Shichuan? Don't you dare take me for a fool. His mouth opened, but no words came out, a pained expression crossing his face, but I was no longer the person who would soften at the sight of his suffering. He would also appear suddenly in the laboratory, ignoring the strange looks from others. He walked straight toward me. Seeing this, Senior Gu Xian immediately stepped in front of me, his gaze wary. Mr. Fu, this is a research facility. If you don't have an appointment, I must ask you to leave. Fu Shichuan, however, paid him no mind. He stepped past my senior and fixed his eyes directly on me. Wani, give me a chance. Let me make it up to you. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Fu Shichuan, what we had is over. I came to Zurich to pursue my dreams, not to get tangled up with you again. Please respect me, and respect yourself. Yet, it seemed my words fell on deaf ears. He even waited at the entrance when I went to the library to look up materials. As soon as he saw me come out, he started rambling with explanations and apologies again. The surrounding classmates cast curious glances and whispered among themselves, who is that man? Why is he pestering her like that? That seems to be her ex-boyfriend. I heard he even abandoned her before. Listening to these whispers, my face flushed crimson, and the fury in my heart burned hotter and hotter. Fu Shichuan, what will it take for you to stop? I couldn't take it anymore and shouted at him. A flicker of panic flashed in his eyes. Wani, I truly can't live without you. Just come back, and I'll do anything you say. A cold laugh escaped me. It's too late, Fu Shichuan. Some things, once lost, are gone forever. With that, I turned and walked away without a backward glance, leaving him standing alone, his silhouette looking utterly desolate. 17 Zurich's late autumn was shrouded in a damp, chilly mist. I clutched the rejected experiment report, my knuckles turning white against the manila envelope. A crowd of students had gathered around the bulletin board at the end of the corridor. Several photos were defaced with glaring red circles and graffiti. One showed Fu Shichuan grabbing my wrist, captioned Chinese student gold-digging tycoon, academic fraud exposed. You've been quite the star lately, Miss Yi. Xinyao leaned against the lab doorway, her Chanel quilted bag clinking sharply against the metal frame. Several blonde girls flanked her, their phone cameras brazenly trained on my trembling fingers. I heard Professor Gu got called in by the academic committee because of you. The glass door burst open. Senior Gu Xian's lab coat hem was still stained with culture medium. He swiftly shrugged off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders, turning to block the malicious stares. According to university policy, unauthorized filming constitutes an infringement, he said, pushing up his glasses. His gaze through the lenses was like a scalpel dipped in venom. Or would you all prefer to be served with a cease and desist? Xinyao's nails dug deep into her palm, but her expression suddenly shifted to one of wounded innocence. Senior, there's no need to be so harsh. I was just worried about Sister Yi. Before she could finish, hurried footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Fu Shichuan barged in, clutching a stack of documents, his suit jacket crumpled like waste paper. These are the transaction records of Xinyao paying international students to smear you. He slammed the papers onto the lab bench, making the glassware rattle. And here's the surveillance footage of her swapping your experimental samples. What are you talking about, brother? Xinyao's voice trembled with tears as she stumbled forward, clutching his arm. How could I ever do such a thing? It must be Wani who forced you. Enough. I slammed the beaker off the table, sending a river of blue liquid snaking across the floor. Senior Gu Xian steadied my trembling shoulders just in time, the warmth from his palm seeping through my lab coat. Fu Shichuan, every time you show up, you just make things worse. I looked at the bloodshot veins in his eyes and felt utterly exhausted. You should have known this day would come when you abandoned me at the Civil Affairs Bureau. The corridor's intercom crackled to life, announcing that the academic committee would convene an emergency meeting. Xinyao's face drained of all color in an instant. Fu Shichuan tried to step forward, but was blocked by Senior Gu Xian. In the moment the two men stood off against each other, I bent down to pick up the torn experiment report. The paper's edge sliced my fingertip, and a drop of blood fell onto the title, Analysis of Cell Culture Failure Causes, blooming into a dark red stain. 18 The tungsten lights cast a stark, pallid glow over the conference room. where 18 carved chairs formed a cold, unyielding circle. My fingers, gripping the lab notebook, were slick with cold sweat, the leather cover deeply creased from my grasp at the far end of the long table ahead. The sound of the academic committee chair flipping through documents was as suffocating as the reaper turning the pages of a ledger of life and death. Miss Yi, an anonymous report alleges you falsified experimental data and engaged in improper financial dealings with an external party, said the silver-haired professor, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses, his gaze from behind the lenses as sharp as a hawk's. How do you explain this? Shen Yao sat in the front row of the gallery, her Chanel suit as stiff and perfect as a suit of armor. She twisted a pearl necklace around her fingers, her eyes just red enough at the corners, the very picture of an innocent party caught up in the scandal. Fu Shichuan suddenly rose from the corner, the hem of his suit jacket scraping against the metal chair back with a jarring screech. These are all slanderous lies. I have evidence to prove that. Shen, Mr. Fu, non-committee members are not permitted to speak. The secretary cut him off coldly, the tip of her pen carving a sharp arc across her notepad. Shen Yao chose that moment to sniffle, turning teary eyes toward Fu Shichuan. Brother, I know you want to protect Sister Yi, but academic fraud is a matter of principle. Senior Gu Xian suddenly slammed a stack of documents onto the table. As the papers fanned out, they revealed bank transfer records and surveillance screenshots. His lab coat bore the faint, unwashed stains of culture medium, yet he stood as straight as a pine. These are Yuani's experimental logs from the last 3 months. Every single data set comes with verification reports from a third-party lab. As for the so-called illicit benefits, the photos provided by the whistleblower contained 7 distinct signs of digital manipulation. The meeting room fell into a dead silence. I stared at the frame-by-frame comparison on the projector. The images Shen Yao had maliciously altered now looked utterly absurd in the face of such irrefutable evidence. Fu Shichuan tried to approach me, but Senior Gu Xian subtly blocked his path outside. Lightning from the thunderstorm lit up all of Zurich. The torrential rain lashed against the windows, as if trying to wash away the truth of this whole farce. Order, order. The chairman banged the gavel forcefully. We will now proceed with a secret ballot. Just as the red ballot box was pushed in front of me, Shen Yao suddenly covered her mouth and rushed out of the conference room. Fu Shichuan took 2 steps after her, then glanced back at me, ultimately freezing in place under Senior Gu Xian's warning gaze. The moment the vote count was announced, the rain outside the window abruptly ceased. My fingers traced the crumpled letter of recommendation in my pocket, the gilded ETH Zurich logo still warm from my grasp. As the meeting adjourned, the oppressive atmosphere receded like a tide. I followed the crowd out of the conference room, my steps unsteady, as if I had just survived a brutal battle. Senior Gu Xian walked quietly beside me the whole time, his presence a solid anchor, offering me an immense sense of security. Shall we go see the Alps after the rain? His voice was soft, carrying a gentle insistence. I looked up and met his clear gaze. Behind his glasses, his eyes were filled with concern and encouragement. Okay, I replied softly, a slight smile touching my lips. It was the first genuine smile I'd managed in a long while. 19. We drove towards the Alps. Along the way, the crisp, rain-washed air streamed in through the car window, carrying the scent of damp earth and fresh grass. The view outside the window was like a painting, with the mountains shrouded in a light mist, creating a scene straight out of a fairy tale. As we reached the foot of the mountain, the clouds and mist gradually cleared, revealing the majestic form of the Alps. The snow atop the peaks glittered in the sunlight as if studded with countless diamonds. Senior Gu Xian and I strolled along the mountain path, the soil beneath our feet damp and soft, each step brimming with vitality. Look, it's an Edelweiss, Senior Gu Xian said, suddenly stopping and pointing to a small white flower by the roadside. I crouched down and gently touched its soft petals, feeling a wave of inexplicable emotion well up inside me. Thank you, Senior, I said, standing up and looking at him sincerely. If it weren't for you, I truly don't know how I would have gotten through this dark time. He was taken aback for a moment, then offered a warm smile. Don't mention it, I believe in you. And I believe in the truth. Besides, you deserve better. We walked on and soon found ourselves in a wide, open meadow. In the distance, a few fawns grazed peacefully, and birds sang cheerfully from the branches. I took a deep breath, soaking in the beauty of nature, and the gloom in my heart simply melted away. You know, I really thought Fu Shichuan and I would make it, I said softly, gazing into the distance. But now I understand, some things, once lost, are gone for good. They never come back. Senior Gu Xian listened quietly, saying nothing, and simply took my hand gently in his. What's past is past, what matters is the future, he said, his voice firm yet gentle. I believe your future will be filled with sunshine and hope. I turned to look at him, my eyes glistening with tears as the sun set in the west. Its golden light bathed us, painting the Alps in a brilliant shade of gold. 20 The sun was sinking slowly behind the peaks of the Alps, staining the sky a deep crimson. Senior Gu Xian and I walked down the winding mountain path, the gravel at our feet glinting with fragmented light in the fading glow. My phone suddenly buzzed. As the screen lit up, an anonymous message popped up. I opened it instinctively, and my pupils instantly contracted. In the photo, Xin Yao, half naked, was nestled in Fu Shichuan's arms. The sheets were rumpled, and an air of intimacy seemed to seep right out of the screen. But strangely, my heart didn't ache as I had expected. It felt like I was looking at a photo of a complete stranger, someone who had nothing to do with me. Senior Gu Xian noticed my odd behavior, stopped walking, and looked at me with concern. What's wrong? I shook my head gently, a mocking smile curling at the corner of my lips. It's nothing, just some petty provocation. As I spoke, I decisively pressed delete and then blocked that anonymous number. They think something like this could unsettle me, but they're wrong. I shoved my phone back into my pocket and lifted my gaze to the distant, rolling mountains. I once gave Fu Shichuan my whole heart, but he let me down time and again. He even abandoned me when I needed him most. And Xin Yao, she'll stop at nothing to have him, not realizing she's only fooling herself. Senior Gu Xian listened quietly, saying nothing, only reaching out to gently rest his arm around my shoulder, offering silent support. There was a time when I thought losing him meant losing my whole world, I said, taking a deep breath of the crisp mountain air and feeling the breeze brush against my cheek. But after going through so much, I've realized I'm far stronger than I ever imagined. Now, I have my own dreams and people worth cherishing. Those past pains are just marks of growth. Senior Gu Xian looked down at me, his eyes filled with admiration and tenderness. I'm so glad you see it that way. You deserve the best, and those who tried to hurt you will eventually face the consequences of their actions. 21 The night in Zurich was quiet and profound. The street lamps cast a soft glow, bathing the cobblestone street in a warm, golden light. I had just stepped out of the lab, an unfinished experiment report still in my hand, my mind still tangled in the complex data. Wani, a familiar voice called from behind, tinged with urgency and panic. I stopped in my tracks and slowly turned around to see Fu Shichuan standing there, panting heavily. His hair was slightly disheveled, his eyes betraying exhaustion and anxiety. He had buttoned his suit jacket incorrectly, which made him look rather disheveled. What are you doing here? I asked, my tone flat and devoid of any emotion. He strode quickly up to me, reaching out as if to grab my arm, but his hand froze mid-air when he saw the coldness in my eyes. Wani, the photos you received aren't real. Xin Yao drugged me and set me up. Nothing happened between us. I listened quietly to his explanation, my gaze steady upon him, yet my heart remained utterly unmoved. There was a time when his every word could stir my emotions, bringing me joy or sorrow, but now, the pain of the past has taught me resilience, and made me understand that some things, once lost, are gone forever. Fu Shichuan, I interrupted him, my voice soft yet resolute. What the truth is, it no longer matters to me. A flicker of shock crossed his eyes, his face etched with disbelief. Wani, how can you say that? I know I was wrong before, I hurt you, but this time it's truly a misunderstanding. I can't let you think that of me. I let out a soft sigh, looking at him with eyes full of distance. Fu Shichuan, we can't go back. I trusted you so completely, I relied on you, but you let me down time and again. That day outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, all those times you stood me up, I'll never forget that pain. I know I was wrong. Wani, give me a chance to make it up to you. I promise I'll never let you suffer another moment of hurt. His voice held a note of pleading as he reached out to take my hand. I gently moved my hand away and shook my head. It's too late, Fu Shichuan, I've moved on. I have my own life now, my own dreams. I don't want to be haunted by the past anymore. He gave a slight shudder, a pained expression crossing his face. Wani, I truly love you. I can't live without you. That's not what love is, Fu Shichuan, I said, looking at him with a trace of pity in my eyes. Real love is about trust, companionship, and standing by someone when they need you most, and you failed on all counts. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there alone. I could feel his gaze following me from behind, but I didn't look back. 22 Time flowed gently in the tranquility of Zurich. After that final conversation with Fu Shichuan, he vanished from my life as if evaporated into thin air. The busyness of the lab and the companionship of my senior, Gu Xian, gradually allowed the old wounds to be buried beneath the dust of time. On an ordinary afternoon, a message arrived from a friend back home. The words within it struck my heart like a thunderclap. Xinyao returned to the country alone and placed that photo, which distorted the truth, before Mr. Fu. Using her so-called innocence as leverage, she demanded that Fu Shichuan take responsibility for her. The Fu family mansion was instantly shrouded in gloom. Fu Shichuan was forcibly summoned back. Faced with the pressure from his family and Xinyao's unreasonable demands, he adamantly refused to agree to that absurd request. Mr. Fu had always treated the family's reputation as his life. Xinyao's move was undoubtedly a brazen test of his bottom line. As for Mrs. Shen, the woman who had once played a complex role in the Fu family's conflicts, her long-standing tensions with Mr. Fu were completely inflamed by this incident. After countless arguments and cold wars, the couple ultimately chose a consensual divorce. What once seemed like a solid family was shattered to pieces under the assault of self-interest and deceit. Yet, Xinyao refused to let go. Her obsession with Fu Shichuan had taken root in her very bones. During a frenzied confrontation on the street, tragedy struck without warning. An out-of-control car, like a runaway horse, came barreling towards them. The screech of brakes tore through the air, but Xinyao couldn't get out of the way in time and was sent flying by the impact. As the wail of the ambulance siren echoed over the city, her life, like a shooting star, plummeted and was extinguished. She succumbed to her injuries the moment I heard the news. I was sitting by the window in the lab, the coffee in my hand long gone cold. That woman who was once so arrogant and ruthless in front of me had now ended her own life in such a tragic way. I felt no sense of satisfaction. Instead, a wave of complex emotions washed over me: pity, and a sobering reflection on the fickleness of fate. Senior Gu Xian walked up quietly behind me and draped a coat over my shoulders. His voice was gentle yet firm. What's past is past, don't let this affect you. I turned to look at him and nodded, understanding in my heart that all the old grudges and entanglements had come to an end with Xinyao's departure. Outside the window, the Zurich sky was a flawless blue, with clouds drifting lazily by. 3 years later, my research was a resounding success. In the hall of Zurich Airport, sunlight streamed through the vast floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the hurried footsteps and the faces of people filled with either anticipation or reluctance. I stood by the luggage carousel, watching suitcase after suitcase glide by on the rotating belt. My heart filled with a complex mix of emotions about my imminent return home. Wani, a familiar voice called from behind me, carrying its unique, gentle warmth. I turned around to see Senior Gu Xian holding a large bouquet of vibrant red roses, his eyes brimming with a mixture of amusement and nervousness. In his other hand, he held 2 plane tickets, which shimmered slightly in the sunlight. This is... My eyes widened slightly as I looked at him in surprise. He took a deep breath, stepped forward, and held the roses out to me, his gaze steady. Wani, for these past 3 years, we've worked side by side in the lab, facing every difficulty and challenge together. You know, from the very first moment I saw you in the lab, I was captivated by your focus and dedication. He paused, gently placing the plane tickets in my hand, and continued, now that your research has achieved such great success, I don't want to wait any longer. These are 2 tickets home. I want to go back with you, not just as a colleague or a friend, but as your boyfriend. So, Wani, will you let me walk beside you, into our future? Looking at the roses and the tickets in his hands, a wave of warmth washed over my heart. For these 3 years, he had been quietly by my side, offering support and encouragement when I felt most helpless, and celebrating with genuine joy for every achievement I made. His confession was the answer I had been waiting for. I took the rose and said with a smile, I thought you'd never say it. A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes, followed by a radiant smile. So, does that mean you accept? I gave a slight nod, and he immediately pulled me into a tight embrace. Passengers around us cast envious glances as I nestled in his arms, feeling his warmth and the steady beat of his heart. By the way, he said, releasing me with a playful grin, isn't it about time I met your parents? I'll have to be on my best behavior to convince them to entrust their precious daughter to me. His words made me laugh, my heart brimming with happiness. Of course, I replied, they're going to love you. The airport announcement called for boarding, and hand in hand, we walked